He was never late. Due to inclement weather that evening, we were stuck in traffic. And he knew he was going to be late for work. And that was not going to work for him. He needed to find a way to resolve this problem. Somewhere on the way, he asked his driver to pull over. He told us he didn't want to be late for work, and he asked us to get out of the car, take our luggage, take a taxi to the hotel, and handed us $20 for the cab. Next thing I know, Jane and I are out of the car, luggage in hand in the snow and ice, hailing a cab, going off to the hotel. I never found out he was late for work, but we made it safely to our hotel. Second story, the dates, 1997 and 2010. Family trips to Israel, sponsored by Ben-Avi. He had such love and compassion for the state of Israel and wanted to make sure that his family had the opportunity to experience and learn how important Israel was to him, his family, and the future of the Jewish people throughout the world. It was his passion and dedication as a Zionist that has such a lasting impact on all of us. Those trips created a connection to Israel that will last for an entire lifetime, and God willing, for future generations. Ask any of the kids what those trips meant to them. An investment that will pay dividends for a long time. Zadie, thank you for having the vision, the passion, for making this a reality for this family. Sidebar. This should come as no surprise that Zadie carried lots of cash with him. Sue, just talking about it. We all knew what an ATM machine was, but when we were traveling in Israel, we had our Zadie TM, which stood for Zadie Teller Machine. He was always handing out money to everybody, every single day. He wanted everybody to spend money in Israel, and it didn't matter what it was for. He just wanted the money to be spent in Israel. His way of helping the Israeli economy, spoiling his family, 2 mitzvahs in one. So why am I telling you all this? Nice story about a wedding night, family trips to Israel, not that unique. Others have done that before. The message is much deeper. He has touched so many individuals, so many lives, so many generations, so many communities in his lifetime. As we say goodbye, let his actions, his passion, his love, his dedication, his commitment, his leadership, his mentoring be a guiding light for all of us. When you need help making a decision or taking an action or questioning yourself, take a step back and ask, what would Nat Papenveld do in this situation? And I know you will be sent in the right direction. Dad, Zadie, you helped fill a void in my life, and I thank you for being more than just a father-in-law to me. You helped me by setting an example of what it means to be a leader, a volunteer, a philanthropist, and a mensch. I know there are so many others that you've helped along the way, silently and without fanfare. Thank you for your inspiration, your love, your passion, your leadership as the patriarch of this family and this community. If we all follow your lead, we can make the lives of others around us just a little bit better. We will miss you deeply and are grateful for having you as a part of our lives. May your memory be a blessing to all.
He was known as Nat to some, Naphtali to others, Tulik, There, and our our family favorite for the last few decades, is Zadie. Zadie was a unique person, to say the least. When he walked into a room, the entire room changed for the better. When he sang in shul or at a seder, the whole room belonged to him. For many years, we disagreed at the seder table of the role of Lavan, the biblical figure. I took the traditional approach that Lavan was wicked and only wanted to hurt the nascent Jewish people. Zadie had another school of thought. He said, Lavan gave Jacob a job, and when you give someone parnasa, you are doing a tremendous act of chesed or kindness. You see, Zadie cared about people tremendously, and he did what he could to help others, including offering loans to young couples looking to buy their first house. My grandson Donnie's bris over 6 years ago, Zadie served as a Sunday in Scarsdale, New York. During the bris, some blood got on his collars. He told people that when he was in a Russian work camp as a teenager, the commander of the camp told his family they would work there for the rest of their lives and never leave the work camp. Then he said, look at me now. Decades later, celebrating the bris of a great-grandson in New York. He said, we never cleaned blood off his dollars. I don't think you ever did. One of the most difficult moments he experienced was having to bury his son David. Etched in my memory, which I will never forget, was seen of Zadie standing at the cemetery while David was being buried, and my mother-in-law leaning her head on his shoulders, while the two of them were tearing up. I think that must have been an inconsolable moment for any parent. But Zadie gained strength from religion. At the funeral, when anyone tried to offer condolences, he responded with a reference to the biblical story of his ancestor, Aaron and Cohen, brother of Moshe. When Aaron lost two sons in a tragic episode, the Torah tells us, Vayidom Aaron, and Aaron was silent. Zadie kept repeating that phrase, Vayidom Aaron, as if to say that sometimes there are no words to explain a tragedy, and we have to trust in God. I think the ability to relate this tragedy to the biblical story gave him great comfort and strength. Each day, for the last few decades, as I prayed the Shema Esrei, I focused on two phrases in the Modim Bracha. The first is, Achayenu Amsurim Biyadecha, for the lives that we committed to you, God. When reciting this phrase, I would thank God for protecting close family members and friends who are elderly or sick and need God's extra protection. Zadie, of course, was on that list for the last few years. And reciting the second phrase, for the souls that we entrust to you, God, I keep in mind those precious souls that have left this world. Well, I've kept in mind many over the years. The only three among the deceased that I consistently keep in mind when I cite this phrase are my own father, my own mother, my brother David, and now Zadie, as I pray that God never will protect us all.
Who was Naftali Talentel? Who was my Zadie? He was a man who didn't care. He could care less. If you drove a Ferrari or a Rolls Royce, he could care less. If you were wearing Louis Vuitton or drinking Louis XV, he could care less. What he did care about was children's Todd services. What he did care about was the show. He cared about you, the congregation, and the fundamentals of the Jewish community. But most of all, he cared about his family and taking care of us and making sure we were all proud of ourselves and our Judaism. It wasn't easy for Zadie, being a war survivor and coming to this country with nothing. But he not only made it, he thrived. 5 kids later, and many grandkids and great-grandkids later. Zadie has made a footprint in his Jewish community and every community he was a part of, from the produce business to his charitable work in Israel and beyond. A true mensch, a true lover of Israel and Judaism, and a true lover of his family. He was a man's man who didn't even know how to drive, but he could care less. Driving or even flying in a personal jet just wouldn't impress him. But coming to Shul would. And I just want to thank everybody for coming and paying her their respects. And I miss him terribly.
I'm going to tell like a really short anecdote. We heard a story about one of the phone scams that's going around, that everybody tried to take advantage of older people. And that's my brother Michael. And Sadie and Grandma got a phone call to their place in Florida. And somebody said, Grandpa, it's Michael. I'm in the hospital and I need money to get out of the hospital to pay my bills. They want money. And Sadie said, if you were one of my grandkids, you would know. Nobody ever calls me Grandpa. And if you ever call here again, you will need the hospital. So sitting in Shul on Monday, we all heard the words Trua several times during the shofar blowing. For those who don't know, it's the one that sounds like Zadie blowing his nose. And the word means fractured, as opposed to one long blast. And when I heard about Zadie's passing, I think that's how I felt, and that's how we all felt, fractured. And when I think about our family members living all across the U.S., it brings back that word again, we're fractured all over the place. And Zadie was like our shofar. He called us back from far and wide to join together again. And you're here today, you loved Zadie. And more than likely, he loved you too. Sorry, I lost my place. What drew us all to him was that he cared about us without agenda, other than that you were a mensch, that you tried to be a mensch. And that's it. Love Hashem. Do acts of tikkun olam, give tzedakah if you can, and if you can't, here's a couple bucks. His life and example made us all love him and be the best version of ourselves, and want to be the best version of ourselves. And in his memory, that's what I will do. At my wedding in 2011, right after Mike broke the glass under the chuppah, the bridesmaids and groomsmen jumped into the aisle to dance the set. Sadie jumped in front of them and danced right in front of me and Mike all the way down the aisle. My friends had to practically yank him down. He had no idea where he was going, but he stood there focused on us, and he did the Zadie dance, with his arms up and his big grin. And his face was so bright. I can't remember when, probably a decade, maybe 2 decades ago, there were 2 parts in our Seder that became my parts. I'm not sure if Zadie gave them to me officially, or why, or how it happened, but they became Zadie interpretations that I shared. And they are really Zadie's essence. The first is about fighting back and being strong. In the Haggadah, there's a story of a bunch of big-time rabbis sitting around telling the story of Pesach through the night. Their disciples come to them and say, it's time to say Shacharit. Zadie tells us this is secret code. There's no way these rabbis didn't know it was time to say Shacharit. It's secret code that it's time to start the revolution, to fight. It's no surprise Zadie hated feeling weak. It was literally against what he believed in. The last time I spoke to him on the phone, he said, Sarah, your Zadie is weak. I told him, Zadie, you're allowed. I hope that he knew that even though his body felt weak, he had never been weak for 1 second of his life. The other Cedars part, which Richie talked about, was about Lavan, Jacob's father-in-law. Zadie believed that the Haggadah unfairly painted Lavan as a more evil oppressor than Pharaoh. So when we got to the part, it'd be my turn to say, Zadie says that we have to remember that Lavan took in a refugee. He gave him a job, he gave him a family. As an immigrant to this country, this is not something that he took lightly. This country allowed Zadie to produce all of this, and he was so grateful every day. And he wanted to make sure that we knew how grateful we should be too. But he does not need to worry about that. We do. It was so special watching Zadie with my kids. His tears when Dahlia first started speaking Hebrew and singing Birkat HaMazon and Mosey. His smile when Hadass would FaceTime and say, "Hi Zadie, Shabbat Shalom." I feel tremendous pride and a huge responsibility to carry his legacy onto them. I have written remarks, but everything that people have said has made me realize that each of us has so much of Zadie in us. I certainly have his impatience. Some of us have this squeamishness around blood, not me, but some other people around here. What I really hope is that we all continue to have his generosity and his heart just every day. And something that my dad said, if we can all just say, what would Zadie do? We will always do the right thing. But he was certainly our role model. And I think for all of our school projects growing up, where we had to talk about who we looked up to the most, each of us has used Zadie at least once. Without knowing why at such a young age, we knew he was someone who modeled hard work, family, and tzedakah. Not to mention, I think Sarah and I are the only two people in our 5th grade class that use Jabotinsky in our Zionism reports. So, he and I had different ways of doing tzedakah. The way I chose to do it often made him pretty nervous. A young woman traveling alone in Africa was not on his list of things he wanted for his grandchildren. But the first time I went to Uganda, I went to the Jewish village of the Abudaya tribe. There, where Yoni Netanyahu's name adorns every building, and the first and one of the few structures they have built was a mikveh. Zadie was all I could think about, and how I really wanted him to be there with me, and I was plotting a way to get him to Uganda with me the next time. Of course, that never happened. But every time I go back there, I will think of how I wish he could have seen this Jewish community thrive in what can only be called a challenging environment. When I did tell him about the Abudaya, the first thing he asked me, of course, was how to send the money for books and for the schools so that they could learn just as we did. And when I go back in December, I'm going to make sure to visit them and bring his spirit with me. He was tough, and that's true. Similar to not wanting me to be alone in a foreign country when I wanted to work at the market, that was truly a no-no. No girls allowed. When I took him for one of appointments when he was being treated for his cancer, he sent me through multiple doors to separate me from the radiation to protect my future babies. I was lucky to have been someone who could protect him from time to time. I'm honored that he trusted me to take care of him when I could. And over the last 8 years, always on call to remind anyone when he was at the doctor of every kind of therapy he ever had. Once when I took him to a checkup at the Baskins, they asked, "What kind of cancer did you have?" He looked at me, shrugged, and said, "Rebecca, do you know?" I filled him in and went through his diagnosis and treatment. And ever since, I've been that tap of knowledge for him. We could pretty much all go on for hours telling stories like this, and we probably will over the next 7 days. But instead, I'm going to stop here and just tell you all to please do 2 things and think of Zadie when you do. The first is to make every relationship in your life unique. He was the role model for making every person in his life feel special. It's something he taught my mother and Sue
how to do the same. And the second is to slip a 20 into someone's tobacco box next time I see it. So when they open up to make the donation, there'll be a sweet surprise, like a nice bright berry, before they make their donation, and we'll be there to spread the tzedek.
Several weeks ago, I sat with my grandfather in the hospital. And in typical form, we quickly delved into a deep conversation. This particular conversation was about leaders and the connection between leaders and their communities. Needless to say that my grandfather was a leader in every sphere of his life. The ultimate patriarch. This conversation made me reflect on what it was about him that made him such a leader. And the theme that I thought about again and again was that of strength. It seems as though this trait permeated each part of his life, from Poland through his final days. In my own life, I regularly witnessed the strength of his moral convictions. Not a family event would go by without my Zadie telling the family about our obligations to care for those less fortunate, to use our privilege and positions of strength to help others. He could command a room with his powerful messages, and his actions were even stronger than his words. I have a memory from my younger brother Jacob's wedding. His groomsmen were being a bit rowdy, let's say. And this is a group that many skilled educators have struggled to contain. And simply by beginning to speak, and with no prior relationship to this group of guys, he immediately captured their attention and spoke to them about the power of friendship, drawing from his experiences in Poland and recalling the ways in which the war stunted his childhood friendships. They still talk about the strength of his words to this day. And of course, the strength of his singing voice always left lasting impressions. It often felt like the power of his prayers were unparalleled. But I think more than anything, the strongest thing about him was the strength of his love. I adored catching my grandparents in moments of strong, shared love. My Zadie quietly checking in on my grandma during a Passover Seder, or holding hands with her on the plane during takeoff and landing. And I personally felt his love always, and I will carry that with me forever. And so as we grieve this tremendous loss, I search for strength for my whole family and this extended community that was without a doubt part of my Zadie's heart and soul. On Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, celebrated over the past 2 days, we recite a prayer. Hayom Ta'atzenu. Today, may we be strengthened. I can't imagine a more fitting prayer as I mourn the loss of the strongest man I've known. And I hope that our family and the larger communities can find strength in the memories and his legacy.
If anyone has any memories or photos, please email it to honoringmatt@gmail.com. Every year that I go down to Florida and visit my grandparents, one of our traditions is to have dinner at Ben's Kosher Deli. I don't know if you know Ben's, but their portions are so out of whack. Each solo meal could fill 3 people. Zadie always made me get the biggest steak on the menu with all of these extra sides. He wanted to make sure that I was beyond full. Anyway, there was one time when I was younger, proudly finishing off my steak, and Zadie points to my plate and says, "Sam, what's all that left on your plate?" I say, "Zadie, that's all the fat from the steak. No one eats that part, it's 100% fat." He said, okay, Sam. But then he proceeds to call over the waiter, and he's like, "We'll take that to go." This is not about Zadie always wanting everything eaten on the plate. It's more about with Zadie, no matter what experience you are having, everything needs to be complete. Whenever you see Zadie in person, you'll know when it's your birthday. You'll know when your next basketball game is, when your next test is coming up, or your next interview.
And with 5 kids and 12 grandchildren, especially at his age, it is truly special that he could be in the know of everyone. This type of behavior extends to his siblings, his cousins, his congregant members, knowing everyone's situation at all times. But what I think was even more important with Zadie was he always wanted to make sure he took away something from an experience we had in our life. When I was fortunate enough to go on a trip to Asia, he didn't want to see the thousands of photos I took or the funny stories I had. He wanted to know what I learned. I was caught off guard. I told him I learned about these different great temples, waterfalls, different foods I ate, and of course kosher, and the great people I met. And he still said, "Sam, I still don't get what you learned." So I went back to the drawing board. I came back a few hours later, having a response all prepared. I said, "Zadie, I learned about the various cultures and religions, the widespread poverty and sickness, and the traditions and practices that people follow, similar to how we follow ones in Judaism that keep our community strong." I went on and thought that this answer would suffice. And Zadie said, "Sam, what did you learn?" I had enough at this point, but it was what Zadie really instilled in me, to always dig deeper into what I do in life, never go through the motions. Even with his daily occurrences for 50 years of going to shul, going to the market, speaking to his family, he treated every interaction as important and with passion and really pushed people, especially myself, to go the next step. I can tell you that this patience and listening just gets thrown out the door when you speak to him on the phone. It's like a hot potato to him. The second he gets the lowdown about how we're doing, midway through the sentence of me asking how he's doing, he says, "I'm good, here's grandma." He never once wanted to be the center of attention, never wanted to be a burden to anyone, which is quite tough in the past year. But what I hope he realized is that his selflessness, his ability to teach and lead and be a role model for so many people is what we wanted him to be and why we are always having him at the center of attention more than anyone else. Every year, that first night of Rosh Hashanah is one of the moments that I treasure the most. Everything gets put on hold, our work, our phones, New York City, everything. Myself, my dad, Gordon, and Zadie head together from Mariv, and we could just focus on being together and connecting with the holiday. We walk down this very aisle, and immediately everyone goes up to Zadie, wishing him Shana Tova. Not once does he forget to introduce me to anyone that he approaches. More than any time in my life, when I enter with Zadie, I feel a part of something. I feel invincible. I feel a bond that will never be broken. And this year, just 3 days ago, when I walked in with my dad, Gordon, and there was no Zadie, it was really hard. It was really, really hard. It didn't feel right at all. But you know, when I sat down and sat where we always sat, I closed my eyes and I imagined every amazing moment that I had with Zadie. I thought about the times I built his sukkah growing up with my best friends, throwing the corn stalks and bamboo on the roof. I thought about the time when he introduced me to tzedakah, giving $20 every time he saw me to donate to charity. I thought about when we brought an entire jackfruit and how he cracked his dentures just because he thought he could eat the entire thing. Once again, thinking he could get everything on a plate. I thought about when I tried teaching him how to record the World Cup soccer game on TV, which was a complete fail. I thought about when I played him in ping pong at the Royal Hotel, made that hotel rest in our heart. I thought about when he beat me 5 times in Romy. I also thought about how he had a closer bond with my grandma than I've ever seen between 2 people. I also thought about the last time I was in Florida last November, just myself, Grandma, and Zadie. He sat me down on his porch, and he told me how blessed he was to have survived and come to America to start such a beautiful family, and how much he believed and trusted our family in continuing the Tappenfeld legacy of caring for others, giving for others, and always being there for others. Every year I'm going to walk into the synagogue, and while his beautiful voice won't be chanting any longer, his soul, his passion, and his love for everyone will always be there for us.
I'm so lucky to have had the time I did with my Zadie. Not only was he the cutest grandparent in the world, but he was the most encouraging nurturing, and hardworking person I've ever met. He was so proud of each member of the family he built, and he wouldn't let any of us forget it. I could tell him I ate a mango, and he would tell me he was proud of me. He was so proud of me when I went to Israel in January, and he gave me $20 and said to give it to anything related to Judaism. Growing up, I always knew that my family was special, and I now know that it's because we all descended from such an extraordinary man. These last couple months were not easy to watch, but I know that Sadie's with my dad now. And they're both watching over me and all of us.
Just by looking around this room, it's very clear what type of person my Zadie was. He was a man of impact who some way touched every single person sitting here today. I could just imagine Zadie sitting front row cavelling as he takes out his handkerchief that my brother Sam without fail asks, "Zadie, when is the last time you washed that thing?" And Zadie just looks at Sam and goes, It's hard to summarize all the things my Zadie taught me in life. Because in short, he taught me that life. He was such an important person to me, someone I looked up to deeply. But if I had to choose one word, it would be pride. The most frequent message left on my phone was, "Hannah, I just wanted to call to let you know how proud I am of you." Zadie always taught to take pride in what you have by giving back to others. To take pride in education by working your hardest. To take pride in being Jewish because Judaism means community, it means tradition, and it means family. And most emphasized is take pride in your family, as family is the most important thing on this earth. He practiced what he preached, and we all learned from the example he set. One of the things I admired most about Zadie was his honesty. A few years ago, I sat Zadie down and interviewed him to tell the story of his life. Although there were struggles and setbacks he talked about, he took pride in his life story and how that shaped him to be the man he was. He told the whole story, start to finish, with honesty and passion. The last time I saw Zadie was right before I left for my semester abroad in Australia. His parting words to me were, of course, about pride. He told me to remember what I had learned at Camp Ramah, to be a leader and respect my Jewish heritage. And all throughout my travels, I was thinking about Zadie and what he had said. As I went from country to country, I sent postcards to keep him and Grandma up to date and remind them that I was thinking of them and all they've taught me. I kept in mind what he told me before I left, trying to spread his messages around the world.